ANKA. You can support us with the Super Thanks button below.
The success of an attack is directly proportional to the value of the targeted area and person. The destruction of military bases, ammunition depots, military convoys, and supply routes, and the killing of senior commanders are very important in this respect. Since the beginning of the war, the Ukrainian army has been targeting senior commanders of the Russian army and important military sites, and has carried out many successful attacks against the invaders. The Ukrainian army's attacks targeting strategic points belonging to the occupying Russian army caused the Russian army to be exhausted. Recently, there has been a new development that will accelerate the depletion of the Russian army. The perpetrator was, of course, the Ukrainian army, which is getting stronger day by day. In the first few days of February, the Ukrainian army hit the Druzhba oil pipeline, one of the most important sources of income for the Russian invaders. The hitting of this oil pipeline could cause Russia a huge economic problem in the long run, because this pipeline, which was the target of the missiles, was transporting more than 33 million tons of oil per hour from Europe to many countries. Moreover, the Druzhba oil pipeline was one of the longest oil pipeline systems in the world. The Druzhba oil pipeline, located in Bryansk region, generated billions of dollars in revenue for Russia. The Ukrainian army's targeting of this important source of income represents a major strategic success. At first glance, Ukraine's attack seemed to harm the European countries, which have always come to the fore with their support and assistance to the Ukrainian army. But there was a much more important development underlying this attack. Since the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, the European Union has been working to reduce its dependence on Russia for natural gas and oil. Over the course of a year, the EU has carried out a series of studies on this issue. As a result of these efforts, dependence on Russia for natural gas and oil has been significantly reduced. A year ago, the EU imported 40% of the gas used in European countries from Russia, while today this number has dropped to 15%. The EU and the UK are gradually reducing their dependence on Russia for gas and oil through various projects. Russia was able to resist the sanctions imposed by Western and European countries thanks to the natural gas and oil revenues it exported to many countries around the world. Putin's biggest weapon was not the tanks, cannons, and rifles in the Russian army, but the oil and natural gas lines running under the ground and under the sea. While the increasing loss of the soldiers and diminishing ammunition in the occupied territories has pushed the Russian army into a corner, the targeting of Russia's largest oil pipeline by Ukrainian missiles seemed to prepare the end of Putin. The explosion of the oil pipeline targeted by Ukrainian missiles was not the first oil pipeline explosion in Russia. There have been many oil pipeline explosions in Russia. The explosions in November and December raised questions in mind, because it was claimed that these explosions in Russia were made by the Russians. Russia was allegedly threatening Europe with these explosions. These allegations remained as allegations. But what is clearer than allegations is that the Russian occupiers no longer have the power to threaten anyone. Putin, who relied on the natural gas oil reserves and pipeline systems on Russian soil, lost his biggest weapon when the world states started to build alternative pipelines to the occupying Russia. Having lost one of the largest oil pipeline systems with the largest operation, Putin is also experiencing a major setback on the front line. As the Russia-Ukraine war completes its first year, the course of the war is increasingly in Ukraine's favor. Developments in eastern and southern Ukraine clearly show that the Russian army is exhausted. In the face of strategic attacks by the Ukrainian army, such as the hitting of the Druzhba oil pipeline, the Russian army is carrying out senseless attacks of no importance. The inexperience of the Russian army is clearly evident in the clashes in the occupied territories. Moreover, the Russian army does not give up on these failed and ineffective attacks. Former Russian intelligence officer Igor Girkin made a statement about the failed attacks of the Russian army in recent months. Gherkin described the Russian army's refusal to give up unsuccessful tactics and operations despite repeated attempts as stupid stubbornness. The inexperience of the Russian invaders was once again demonstrated in the video posted the other day by Ukrainian officer Anatoly Stefan, in which Russian soldiers are in a damaged area as open targets. The Ukrainian army rewarded this mistake of the Russian soldiers with a successful missile attack. The development that is the subject of the video took place in eastern Ukraine. The footage shows about 10 Russian soldiers moving on foot in an open area. A few Russian soldiers are wounded, and other soldiers have difficulty carrying the wounded Russian soldiers, and these images are recorded from the air. As the Ukrainian army starts the operation, a few of the soldiers in the footage are killed with the first missile shot. Then, as other soldiers in the area come near to the soldiers targeted by the missiles, several more missiles are fired. As a result of this attack, it is seen that all the soldiers in the footage were blown up. After the publication of the footage of the attack, the weapon used in the attack became a subject of debate. The fact that the footage was recorded from the air gave rise to the idea that the attack was carried out by Bayraktar TB2 drones. However, it is widely believed that the weapons used in the attack was the Ukrainian-made anti-tank missile Stugna-P, or ATGM. In the comments on the images shared on social media, it was stated that shooting a soldier with an anti-tank missile was a great success, because it is very difficult to hit small targets with these missiles. A user on social media commented under the attack post as follows: "Whoever fired those 3 shots is undoubtedly the best ATGM operator in the world. He is officially sniping with it." The Ukrainian army continues to make great history against the Russian invaders. The Russian army's military personnel losses, including the losses in the latest video, total about 130,000. Russia has also lost hundreds of thousands of tons of ammunition. Oil and gas pipelines, the only and most trusted resource of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, continue to be the target of the Ukrainian army. Ukrainian forces published the losses of the Russian invaders on February 2nd. The losses of the Russian army from the beginning of the occupation until February 2nd are as follows: 129,030 military personnel, 3,211 tanks, 6,382 armored combat vehicles, 2,212 artillery systems, 458 reactive volley fire systems, 222 air defense systems, 293 aircraft, 284 helicopters, 5,064 tanks and automotive equipment, 18 military ships and boats, 796 cruise missiles, 1,951 drones, 200 special machines, and 4 operational tactile missile complexes. It seems very difficult for Russia to continue the war with these losses. So what are your thoughts? Do you think the Russian army can continue the war with increasing losses? Will the Ukrainian army's attacks on the Russian oil and gas pipelines affect the Russian economy? What do you think about the course of the war? We are curious about your views. Follow us for more updates.
All rights to these videos belong to ANKA Daily News YouTube channel. Our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook usernames are @ANKADailyNews. Do not rely on any other social media publications. We legally fight all websites and channels that use it without our permission.